This is actually something I haven't done before, but this is Watch U Strappin. Was episode 80 yesterday, and this is 80B. It's kind of a follow-up. I had afterthoughts after doing that one, and I just wanted to kind of supplement that last video with this one right here real quickly before I try to get into work. As you know, or might know by now, this is a recent SKX013 mod, Seiko if you're not familiar with the model. Yeah, this is the smaller mid-size, they consider mid-size version, 38mm, which I really do like. I've been okay with the SKX007, 009 size, which is just under 43mm, right? But for my wrist size, I think this really works out well. And I kind of like the fact that it's cut a little bit more sharply and a little bit more angular, perhaps, at the lugs. If you compare them, yeah. What I have updated on this is, trying to get my sleeve out of the picture, hang on. Okay, what I've updated on this has basically been two things, and they're both related. The first thing is, would be the movement. It's still NH36A, but it was acting a bit erratic, if I'm being honest. Time grapher showed, like, it might show a certain beat, a certain rate, and then all of a sudden it'd make a super spike to, like, say it was +2 or 4 or whatever, and then all of a sudden it would spike up to +22 or 30 or something like that, and then it might even make a sudden dip to like -20 or 30 or something like that. And so yeah, that was disconcerting. Or was it actually concerning? Yeah, so I wasn't sure what was going on, but I did feel that when I was installing the movement back into the watch and putting it all together, I did notice that if I pushed a little too much the movement in, the second hand would actually stop, and I was like, oh crap, I guess it's somehow touching the inside of the crystal. So there was that, and that was not a good thing. And so I adjusted the hands to angle it down ever so slightly on the balance and the pointer end, just to make sure maybe some reason it was curved on the inside and catching that. Because if it was touching the center, you'd think, where it pivots in the middle, you'd think that it actually stop altogether all the time, right? More so. So anyways, I did that. I tried popping out the crystal and installing it again as well. But yeah, so that seemed to work, but then again, as I checked, it seemed still erratic, and at times I checked back, it was seemingly fine for hours, and then at some point, when I cross-check it with my time, it would lose. I'd be behind maybe 16 seconds or something around there. And I was like, what the heck? Anyways, I wanted to do two things: check the movement and check the crystal as well, and reset it. It wasn't completely level or flat; it was slightly tilted, but that was besides the fact. I figured I'd see if I can reset it at a higher position, because it was sitting actually a little bit below the bezel insert line, or height, or whatever you want to call it. You could see it from angles and stuff, and you can feel it. It's probably at least 1 millimeter down underneath the level of the crystal. But now I've managed to push it back out a bit, and now it's actually more flush with it, as you can see. So I'm sorry. Yeah, so actually that helped out. I like it that it's more closer to the same level as the bezel insert, and not actually inset. And it actually helps fill out the gaps a bit more that you could see from this angle, towards the bezel insert. Some of you might know, because the crystal is angled and beveled in. you can actually see sometimes a pretty reasonable gap between the crystal and the bezel insert. And that was happening, but I was expecting that anyways, because of that's how some of the Seikos are like. But anyways, pushing it out, it helped to kind of close up that gap a bit more. So that's what I did, and I think it's sitting better now. Let's see here. Yeah, sorry, it's just checking. So with that increased height, that should give some clearance and make sure that the hands really do not somehow touch. And when I did take the movement out and put it on a time grapher by itself, and just to see if outside the case and definitely away from the crystal, would it still give me erratic readings. And it was much more stable. Didn't do the sudden spikes and stuff, at least not to that height, you know, like 20 or 30 plus, maybe even more, depending, or sudden dips as well, in the negatives. It was, you know, even a good watch sometimes might get a slight spike, like a +4 or something, you know, if it's holding 0, for instance, something like that. But then for the most part, it'll hold, you know, around +0 if that's where it's kind of set to. Again, depending on dial and position, you know, orientation. But so at least I felt that the movement was good. It actually wasn't jacked, so it's probably the way the crystal was. So anyways, after installing it, I checked it again with the crystal pushed back out a bit, and it seems to be holding pretty darn good now. I've re-regulated it, and I think it's doing pretty well. It hasn't really, I think at most it's minus half a second since I set it sometime last night. So going on 12 hours, that's not too bad. We'll see on the wrist how it does. I might go back in and just tweak it a bit so that if it's anything, I'd prefer it on the plus. But that's pretty much it. Yeah, so I basically tweaked checked the movement outside the case, and then re-regulated it after I got it back in the case and I checked the positions, and I actually will check it at this. Let's see what angle. Actually, kind of like this, at this angle, because I figured my hand is rarely turned inwards like this that much, right? It's just kind of awkward. It's usually going to be flat, down side up, or maybe to my side or something, like I'm driving, or even if I have my hands, holding a cup or something, right? It's going to be side. So I kind of regulate it to here at 45, somewhere in between. Like I check this, make a note of the rate, and then I flip the watch over and get to the movement, and I make the appropriate adjustments to see if if it was -6, then when I go dial side down and go to the back, I'd probably see if tweaking it +6 would get it back into range, and then put the case back on and put it, set it in this position on the time grapher, and then make a note and see where it's at. And, it's kind of like that, and adjust accordingly if I need to increase it a little bit more, or maybe it went too far. Because proportionately, the adjustments don't always happen, respectively or proportionately in all positions. Like you could say, oh, I did +2 in this dial side, and that must mean in this position it'll actually be +2 from what it was. No, if a watch is really balanced, where it's very consistent and predictable in all positions, yeah, that will probably work. But Seiko movements, they're not that finely tuned, unfortunately, for the most part. You might get lucky, and it could be very stable in a lot, if not all positions, but I think that's rare. So anyways, just something to note. Kind of rambling on, but I just wanted to add that little bit of the movement adjustment, and I think now it's running much more solid, and I think the crystal actually, as a result, because I pushed it up, actually sits better, because of it's it's not as inset, and it's more, you know, flushed at the top of the watch and with the bezel, which is better. You get a little less gap around the edges from, you know, these kind of angles, and it just looks better, just more flush across. That's it. Better get to work. All right. Forgot to mention one other thing, and apologize if the fan in the background is annoying. This will be quick. Basically, I just want to add, I think this presidential bracelet is pretty nice on here because the watch is probably in modern standards considered diminutive at 38 millimeters, but it's actually a pretty darn good size for a dive watch. Regardless, as such, I think the meatier links in the presidential bracelet, such as this, kind of adds some bulk to it and makes it maybe look a little bit more substantial, at least feel like it too. But it's not overly heavy. I think it balances out actually pretty well. And I don't know, I guess you could say it maybe makes it slightly more manly because it's, you know, these chunkier links. So that's pretty much it. I think that's another reason why I chose this presidential style. Is it presidential or president? You know what I'm talking about. Style bracelet, and it's practically like a Jubilee, but in some sense. But doesn't have all those fine, what are those, 3 fine interlinks that are in between. It just has like a solid one, just kind of like the ones on the side, which I kind of like there. It keeps it sporty, but I guess you could also dress it up too, right? Because this is a style that they have on some Datejust, or at least the day dates on Rolexes. Sorry for the flip-flop. I'm just trying to show you different angles of this thing. Again, do I wish I had the solid end links? It doesn't matter to me. I mean, there's no, I don't know if you can see, but there really is no play in this. Is it jangly? Well, you know, a presidential. It's got some good breathing space in between, but it's not like, it can't roll over on itself like the stock Jubilee bracelet can, like on the SKXs. So let's say it's solid enough. The class could be better, as you can see. I didn't show it the other day, but it's just stamped. But I've never had an issue with anything like this. I don't plan to really go that hard with a modded watch anyways. In general, I have other tool watches for that, but it does serve its purpose, and overall it fits and it's comfortable enough, and I like that it still. I don't think this is a Seiko bracelet, at least I've never known them to have a president style like this. Yeah, the only thing that was close was on like a 6139, but that was back in the 70s. I had that on my 6139, or at least a version of it. But as far as I know, I don't think there's any other divers that, or any other watch that Seiko makes, current or recent past, I guess, or even late past, that has this kind of style. So I don't know. I mean, it looks official enough. You know, it doesn't look, you know, there's some that try to pass off as a Seiko's logo, but it looks really fake. But this looks fairly legitimate. So either way, I just like the fact that it's still branded Seiko, so it all matches. Although the dial doesn't anymore, but you know, I guess whatever. Watch fans will know that this is a, you know, Seiko base design, and that's fine. Either way, I think it's pretty cool. All right.